call you up. If there's no objections, witnesses who have registered a position on a bill but who do not testify or provide written testimony will be entered into the record. Is there any objection to that? So ordered. Well, we're going to have another incredibly productive local government committee. This committee handles the largest number of bills of any Senate committee, as our enthusiastic freshmen will find out. Towards the end of May, every House member will become your friend, okay? Because they all have an avalanche of local bills to be heard. So without that, I think we're going to head straight over to our first bill, okay, which is Senator Mays gets to drive.
All right. Because this is the chairman's bill, got the gavel right now. I promise to give it back.
That's right.
After.
You know, I'm not really worried.
Yeah,
You can keep it as long as you want. I'm really happy for you.
There's one time that didn't happen in the House that I
was?
sure didn't give a gavel back.
Okay, well, tell me that story later.
Yeah, I will.
Don't
I will.
repeat
It's
bad
a House
behavior.
story. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
So, the chair lays out Senate Bill 4 and SJR 2 by Senator Betancourt and recognizes Senator Betancourt to explain the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chairman, okay, and members of the committee. I want to first thank you all for being being joint authors of this bill. I appreciate that, along with, let's see, do the math quickly in my head, 20 colleagues. The Senate joint resolution, simply put, will increase the homestead exemption to $140,000. Beginning on the 84th legislature, the Texas Senate has taken the lead on passing increased homestead exemptions from $15,000 to $25,000. And then in the 87th legislature, a bill that I authored, Senate Joint Resolution 2, approved by the voters in May of 2022, increased the homestead exemption up to $40,000. And once again, the SB 2 from the 88th legislative session was approved by voters at 83% of the public. That raised the homestead exemption to $100,000. Now, this is just for school taxes, does not apply to county, city, and special districts. We'll be making that repeatedly clear at this point in time. So we have both the statute as well as the constitutional provision. The great news is the mathematics of this. In Senate Bill 1, as introduced by Senator Huffman, the chair has provided additional $3 billion for 6.8 pennies of school compression in that budget, which is the state compression percentage. It will reduce what we believe the average ISD tax rates from 97.66 cents to 90.86. That's a additional 6.8 penny savings. That is for all property taxpayers, not just homesteads. However, when you apply to an average homestead, it does save the average homestead $133. The increased homestead exemption amount is a 40% increase in the existing homestead exemption of $100,000. That does provide a huge savings of $363 for the average homestead. That is factored times the reduced ISD average rate already of the compression. There's always, as there has been with all of these bills, a hold harmless in the school districts that make sure that they're not literally on the hook for anything budgetarily, and they haven't been, and they won't be with this bill. So when you combine both, the savings that will come through property tax relief on the state compression percentage and also the savings from the homestead exemption, the estimated savings is $496.57. That's $500, and that is significant. And I want to thank our archive librarians. If y'all would take a look at go back to the first slide, please. If you would go back to that. This was so popular. It was so huge that Senator Patrick actually endorsed this. You might notice that author Patrick is on the line. We're not sure how this happened, but I'm just happy. There might have been somebody else there from Washington. I don't know, but It was always great to see your first bill get 32 joint authors in a Senate that only has 31. Okay, but that's just a little tip, a secret weapon in the future if we need it. Okay, so we can run through the math again by using the spreadsheet there that's available for the public to see. And it's pretty straightforward. We've done this several times on Groundhog Day in February before, so the math is pretty constant for its output. Now, next slide will show what the puts and the changes were from the last legislative session. I remember sending a text to James Quintero, and I said, you know, that record property tax relief just became a super record at $22.7 billion. Well, this is how it became that way. We had budgeted $18 billion in the last legislative session. The change was attributable to some underestimation on the compression factor of $2.4 billion. The homestead exemption was underestimated 1.9. There's interactive effects, et cetera. The end result was that the cost of SB2 actually became $22.7 billion. Now, why that's important is because when we pay for something, I'm like Patton. I don't like to give up the same ground more than once. We're going to keep paying for it so that we maintain the level of property tax relief. It's very important for the public to know while there's discussions about old compression, new compression, lateral compression, whatever, it doesn't matter, old homesteads, new homesteads, whatever, all that money has to go into the state budget. If it does not show up, there will be no tax rate reduction. If it does not show up, there will be no homestead exemption. And when you go through those, that existing formula, we've been talking about from existing compression costing about $3.5 billion, additional HP3 compression, which I just talked about, which is 6.8. That is going to be $3 billion more. And then we've got the increased homestead exemption that we clocked into $3 billion that we were expecting to be 2.7. We've got a physical note that is down in the 1.1s, and we haven't had time to double check that, but we believe that's a misallocation of an SSP application. So we're going to assume that our 2.7 that was the cost of it that was provided to us by the LBV in advance is the correct cost. So the end result is that what we're having to put in just to start this session to make sure that we maintain this, plus what we're looking at for some additional work, is about about $32 billion, and that's a substantial sum of money. Since we started this run in 2019 with the passage of HB3, that total number has actually been $51 billion, and it's an example of what happens when you commit to property tax relief. You have to commit, and you have to keep committing. You have to keep doing it every year, because whether that money comes in for rate compression or it comes in for homestead exemption, it has to go into the budget to work. The only way that the taxpayers get this money in the case of the homestead exemption will be if the House passes it like the prior homestead bills and the public votes for it. And then, of course, the tax bills will go out with the higher homestead exemption, which generates the actual cut for the homestead exemption of $363. So with that, I think we've got maybe one more slide. We can stop for some questions. We had held a hearing back in September. The Senate Finance Committee, chaired by Chairman Huffman. The discussion was to ask the State Comptroller's Office to estimate the amount of sales tax to replace all property tax. That estimate at the time was, I believe, 23%, with a little bit of additional tax collections that have occurred. When you look at the yellow sections, you can see that it clocks in between 21.75% to 22% of just the sales tax for the state. You still have to add the local tax for 2 pennies on it. So we're looking at a sales tax rate of 24% to replace all property taxes based upon the current level of revenue for property taxes. So if we wanted to make sure that number was there, if we're going to have a discussion about it today. In addition, I think we've had that slide already. So it looks like we're, I think, done, unless, Ross, you've got something else you're...
That's just
Okay. All right. Well, then we've got a marginal cost. What are the figures for the marginal cost on the...
it's about $134.
Okay, $134 billion on homestead exemption, and about 29.47 on for compression for $1 billion. Let me explain that. Homestead exemption is at least 3 times or more efficient when you're applying tax dollars and savings to the results. When you use $1 billion of homestead exemption, you're basically roughly generating about $134 per $1 billion of savings per the 5.7 million or so homestead accounts.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
All right, and to make it
Maybe I'm the only one.
okay, to make it a long story short, I will cut the Aggie math and make it simple. Homestead exemptions cost less per billion to get a big result. Okay. And that's what that slide says, about 3 times or more better. With that question, is there anything else? Senator Nichols.
Senator Nichols.
Thank you. You might want to explain how this impacts if someone's over 65 and their taxes are frozen.
Yeah.
How do they get the benefit, and how do they do that?
See, this is why we have an enthusiastic member of the Finance Committee on this committee. Anyway, Senator Nichols, it's a great point. First off, the over 65 disabled exemption would be $150,000, so it's slightly higher. Now, because of the good work of this committee and the Senate and the House, et cetera, we've broken what were the causality of frozen values. It used to be, my silver-haired legislators know that the best they could expect was they were not going to pay more on that school tax bill every year. Now, the good news is because of the work that we did and approved by the public in May of 2022, as either the tax rate goes down or the exemption goes up, that frozen value is unfrozen, and then the new lower or effectively net lower results is then refrozen, and then the over 65 bills actually go down. And we have many over 65s in the state that are now paying 0 tax as a result, and their bills that are not at 0 are coming down each year. And it was a substantial change in 23. With this homestead exemption, Senator Nichols, it will be a substantial change for over 65 bills this coming year. Excellent question.
Members, any more questions of the author?
That over 65 was my question, right?
So grateful to be joint author on this.
Okay.
Yep, thank you, Chairman. Very grateful to be joint author on this and taking care of especially the seniors in my district. I also have a really renter-heavy district, so we usually have between like 5 and 10 points higher than the state average. Can you speak to either other bills that are coming this session to address renters or how this one can impact renters?
Well, I'm going to tell you that the good news that in the budget itself at this point is 6.8 pennies of state compression percentage that's lowered. Now, what's important is the market forces of renting. Right now, market rents are soft. We'll be hearing from some people later on that. So when there is a tax cut on rates, this is the best time to get that money passed through to renters. If the markets where the rents are going up like this, very difficult for any tax cut, any conceivable tax cut to get through. But in a declining market, it's actually the perfect time to have that additional help. Okay, thank you.
Senator West, do you have a question, the author? Okay. Members, any more questions, the author, on either one of these? All right, well, very good. It's time to begin our first panel here. The chair calls panel 1, Jim Pop, Rich Senna, Charles Skoma, and Dixon Ullman. And what we'll do is we'll allow all the panel to testify, so they're 5 minutes each, and then at the end, members, we can ask questions. So after the whole panel is done, that's when we'll open up to questions. So, and we'll begin on the far right here. If you could, Jim, if you could state your name, who you're with, and your position on the bill.
My name is Jim Pop. I'm a attorney partner in the law firm of Pop Hutchison, and I am for the bill.
Hey, thank you, Jim.
Okay.
Would you like to proceed, or is that enough?
No,
we'll
Mr.
take
Chairman,
that,
with
but,
all your statistics, you took away about 4 of my 5 minutes, so I can rush through this. I appreciate it. I've been dabbling in property tax as a lawyer for now 46 years. I was actually committee counsel to Ways and Means in 1979, so I've been around the block a few times. I just want to say a few words to sort of put this exemption in perspective, because exemptions always sound good, and they are good, but I suggest a little background on why they are good. Now, the Lincoln Land Institute states, and the Lincoln Land Institute is a think tank, it's been around for 70 years, it studies property taxes and many other things. And it talks about 5 things for a quality property tax system. And I submit to you, we have the absolute best property tax system in the United States. That is a quality assessment practice, targeted tax relief, well-designed state aid formulas, avoid tax limitations, and pay taxes on a monthly basis. Those are the 5 keys, and I'll mention each of them in context with regard to the exemption. Now, some of you who might not believe that we have the best property tax system in the United States, Senator Ben Cord, I brought my fiance, who's a property tax lawyer in Oregon, back there, Cynthia Frazier in the corner, and she can testify about a bad system. But we won't bring her up because I'll embarrass her. So, quality assessment practice.
I'm not sure we're not going to bring her up.
I know. I warned her. That's right. In Oregon, it really is, just to give you an example of what happens when you attack the system, property taxes, too aggressively, she pays a local property tax, local income tax, in addition to a state income tax. Crazy. So quality assessment practices. We have an annual appraisal. It provides for quality, equal, and uniform. We have taxpayer-friendly remedies, providing access to the system. Equal and uniform in Texas remedy is unlike any in any other state. It's incredible. And finally, we have a non-political assessment authority. 79, when I was at Ways and Means, each of the taxing units did their own assessment. So that brought politics in. Now, targeted tax relief, the number 2 thing means for you members to make a conscious decision of the benefits and who the tax relief benefits. It's a policy decision made with the understanding of the impact. It's not a bad thing when one understands how it impacts. Now, Texas has very good targeted tax relief, thanks to the Senator and this committee and this House and Senate. The 3% and the 2.5% levy limit is incredibly good targeted tax relief. We also have a school freeze, as you've heard, and the current $100,000 homestead exemption. The increase to 140 will increase the targeted tax relief. And I very much support this targeted tax relief. Your constituents are out there, and they will see this, and emotionally it will affect them. And that's important. You can talk all day long about the benefits of levy limit, but they don't see it, they don't feel it. And that's why they think rising appraisals, whoa.
You got a minute.
1 minute. Okay. So I totally support the senator's exemption. I think it's very good targeted tax relief. And the other thing, very quickly, that the Lincoln Land Institute says, avoid tax limitations. avoid tax limitations. And the most common is appraisal caps. You may hear from some of your colleagues, let's do appraisal caps. Appraisal caps only shift burden. They do not reduce burden. And if you have any questions about appraisal caps being bad, I'll be glad to pass out this 500-page document which outlines all the articles on appraisal caps being bad. So I commend this committee. I commend Senator Betancourt for providing us with the best property tax system based on my 47 years of experience in the United States. Thank you, Senator. Thank you, members.
Thank you, Jim.
A lawyer in 5 minutes, really.
Mr. Senna, if you could state your name, who you're with, and position on the
Sure, Senator. Good morning. My name is Rich Senna, and I have served on the Bernie ISD Board of Trustees for the past 11 years. I'm here to testify in support of the bill. Our district's board approved 4 legislative priorities for the 89th session last August, one of which advocates for continued property tax relief. You may wonder why we support tax relief when school districts across our state are facing deficits and are looking for revenue to meet the needs of educating their students. Very simply, our board realizes that school taxes are the largest share of our property owners' tax bill. As a fast-growth district that will continue to require new facilities for the foreseeable future, we want to be fiscally responsible to maintain the trust and support that we receive in our community. Another issue is affordability. While our county is one of the most affluent ones in Texas, it also has some of the highest housing costs. So the more we can do to lower the overhead costs for our families, the better. We want our children and grandchildren to be able to live in Bernie. Advocating for property tax relief is nothing new for our board. This has been one of our priorities for the past 3 sessions. And I'd like to review, and I included some spreadsheets there for your review, of the effect that property tax relief has had on homeowners in the past 6 years. The first sheet shows both the percentage that school taxes constitute as well as the change in property taxes paid that the average taxable value home has made to the school district, the city, and the county. You will see that the percentage that constitutes school taxes has declined from 2/3 in 2006 to under half in 2024. While the average homeowner did pay 21% more in school taxes in 24 as opposed to 06, it's way below the cumulative inflation rate of 57%. The second spreadsheet offers more detail to what was displayed in the first spreadsheet. At the bottom of that sheet, you'll see the changes in tax rates over the past 18 years. And the third sheet shows the impact of House Bill 3 that was signed into law in 2019, as well as voter-approved increases to the Homestead exemption. The top page of the third spreadsheet in red highlights what the school tax burden would have been without any change in law. You will see the average homeowner would have paid over $7,600 in taxes. Below that, in light purple, shows the impact of the current law with a homestead exemption of $100,000 and lower tax rates. This discount saved and we also offer an early payment discount, which over 70% of our property owners take advantage of, saving them over $2.5 million this year. You'll see under current law, the average homeowner paid $4,800 in taxes versus $7,600 in the old law. And below that in gray assumes a voter-approved increase in the exemption to $140,000, as well as the forecasted tax rate reduction for 25. This would lower our Bernie average homeowner's tax bill an additional $500 plus. Overall, since by passing SB 4, the overall savings since 2019 for the average homeowner would be $275 a month. For a starter home in Bernie, which is an exact same price as the average home in Texas, the savings is almost $190. This would be welcome news to people like my daughter's family, where that represents over 10% of their monthly mortgage payment. To our senior citizens, the relief is even greater. Almost a third of our seniors almost a third of our homeowners are over the age 65, and this will allow them to stay in their home. And while property tax relief is very important, we also requested an increase in the basic allotment. That's one of our 4 priorities. From 2006 to 19, our general fund grew by 17% less than the combined rate of inflation and enrollment growth. That was a $10 million gap. That's exactly what we paid in Robin Hood that year, $10 million. When our taxpayers heard that 13% of their tax bill was going to recapture, they were furious. Let me tell you, they were furious. All this goes to say we need additional tax relief. And so I mentioned there's some other statistics in there with 30 seconds left about how 60% of our payroll cost goes to teachers, and the increase in costs for utilities, fuel, casualty insurance have skyrocketed, and then we need some help. We're an A-rated district, have been since the rating system started, while 3 of our 4 priorities are in SB1 or SB4. That's a 75%. That's a C. We don't want a C. We want an A. And to get an A, we need your help. So we love SB4. We also want an increase in the basic allotment.
Okay.
3 seconds left. Thank you.
Okay. 2, 1. Rich, by chance, do you have this electronically?
I do.
Could you hand that over to the gang? We might want to try to put these up if we can get it done quickly. You know, at least by the end of the hearing. This is really some fabulous information. Oh, sorry, Mr. Chairman. Why don't you open up for questions?
What gets measured gets fixed. So
Right. No,
we got a lot of good numbers here.
right. And I
What we're
wish
fixing.
No, I wish I could. Mr. Chairman, I wish we could show this. So if you can, I want you to peel it out and give it to Mohammed or Ross.
I think I emailed it to David.
You emailed it to David. All right, now we're going to see how good our archives are. Let me try to just take this through slowly because I think it's very important. And we do want to go back to the counselor and get some questions in for him. All right. You're looking at property value changes in Bernie, and you've included the city of Bernie, the Bernie ISD, and the county. So that's the big 3.
Correct.
And you've looked at the county taxes over a period of time, and the increase for the city from 2006 to 2024 is 157%, right, Rich?
Correct.
The county is slightly behind at 151, and because of all the work we've done with school taxes, the increase is only 21% over those 18 years, right?
Correct. Correct.
So, and the slide I would love to show is the one here, which I'll see if I don't know if they can zoom in on it. Oh, we've got it. It's coming. Oh, the speed at which electrons travel is nearly the speed of light. Well, it is the speed of light, except in the committee. Okay.
That's the only one.
The only one we've got is the big one. Okay, let's blow that up then, so everybody can see it. So you basically did that comparison, and the rate of change for city and county is literally 7 times higher than the school tax, right, Rich?
That's correct.
Now, when you had mentioned recapture, it had peaked at 10, and what happened after SB2?
After HB3 went into effect, it was reduced to 259,000
Right.
in 1920. 2021, it went to 0. 21-22 went to 0. Then, due to the accelerated home values, we were back in the soup, 7.3 million. And then with SB2, that 3, yeah, okay, SB3.
No, 2.
2, okay, yeah. It eliminated that, and with continued tax compression and an increase in the basic allotment, those 2 issues really keep our district out of Robin Hood.
Right. So that's one of the reasons why you're here, because it's good news for the district, because you were in Robin Hood, tax relief took you out, and then we had a record tax increase year of 22, 23 period of time, and that blasted you back into Robin Hood. But SB2 came to your rescue, and you got wiped down from 7 million and changed back to 0.
That's right. But one thing I have to say is that our population, when they see that we're out of Robin Hood, they're ecstatic, but they think we have all this money now. When that money went to property tax reduction, which is why we need an increase in the basic allotment. But that's...
You know, Rich, there are some problems I can't handle here. That's another committee. Okay, that's right. But that's a great. That's obviously a great news, because no one wants that. The Robin Hood situation doesn't help really anyone. Okay, effectively.
Right.
All right. Now, if we had the other slide, which we do not, this is really a fascinating analysis of what you pay on the average home in Bernie I have some relatives there now, so I know that it's about $600,000 or so. The net school taxes were $7,600 in 2019, and the net school taxes after SB4 is passed will be $4,300. Wow. Okay, that's a pretty dramatic percentage reduction for that's the average home. And we'll talk about starter homes because part of the problem we've got is a home affordability issue that we've been looking, obviously, to do something about with another Lieutenant Governor priority bill, SB 15. And that's a 43% reduction in school taxes in the average Bernie home. And that is, and you've had some real growth in Bernie, have you not?
We are a fast growth district, yeah.
Right. Kendall County booming.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, when you looked at a starter home at the average of the state, you had a tax bill prior to 2019 to $4,100. And that tax bill is down to $1,800. So that's another 57.6%. So in both cases, you've calculated a 57% or higher reduction in tax bills for school taxes.
Yeah, it's what makes it affordable for my daughter and her family. I like my granddaughter living 2 blocks away from me. This is good. I get to see her a lot, and they have another one coming, and they're going to go to our school system. So this is all good. You know?
No, there's affordable home ownership has many possible permutations. It's one of the reasons, ladies, that we've stuck so hard to this from a homestead exemption because Senator Cook and Senator Paxton trying to keep home ownership affordable is critical. One of the other answers to your question about renters is right now it is cheaper to rent by all the statistics that I see out there than it is to own. So that's why we're starting off one of several elements of property tax relief with this, robust increase in the homestead exemption. Okay, Rich, besides the obvious benefit, and by the way, congratulations, Grandpa.
It's great being a grandpa.
Yeah, that's right. It's great. Okay, especially if they're 2 blocks over, and they're getting a great exemption on their home. I mean, I was going to say that if we can get the bill out by Valentine's Day, this would be for your better half a nice present. But you've already got it.
Yes. Well, my granddaughter's first words were "dada," then it was "mama." Now it's school. Because I take her. The school is right by their house.
Would you teach her homestead exemption?
Well, that's a lot, that's a lot of syllables there.
Yeah, I know. Just start with home.
That's right. With education first.
Well, that's all I remember is home. I don't remember anything. All right. So, you want to ask for questions?
I do actually. I'm glad you brought up Robin Hood on that one. Yeah. Obviously Senator Betancourt's got Spring Branch, what's a Robin Hood district. I've got, Galveston ISD and, Deer Park's a big Robin Hood district and Angleton's on the edge of it. And obviously I think that's the thing that kind of a ancillary benefit of this legislation is that we are actually keeping the school district whole. So it's a hold harmless type, I guess, is the way that we describe it in school finance. I call it keep whole, where on the INS side, right, the state is essentially keeping y'all whole on the INS side. That's how it worked under the other bill we passed, Senate Bill 2. It's actually why the cost was so much more than we thought initially, because the benefit was so much more than we thought. That's the long way of saying that. And that is Robin Hood exempt dollars. So I think we need to make that clear that this is one of the things we can do, not just to lower people's taxes, but also to reduce the amount of Robin Hood these districts are having to pay because it goes straight to the INS side and it is not a recapture amount. So I mean, these are the kind of things that I love seeing going through this committee and through the legislature because Robin Hood's a huge issue. And it's one of the things that we can do here to address it while also providing property tax relief for homeowners.
That's a good point, and we may be property wealthy, but that does not mean that our district is wealthy in terms of revenue per student. We're one of the lowest. I think our CFO told us we're the 9th lowest in the state. And so we hear figures yesterday, 15,000. Well, heck, our operational budget is $9,700 per kid, 10,000 if you include the pass-through for teacher retirement. And, that's, is that a lot? Is that a little? It is what it is. And we have a lot of academic options for our students, but with a small deficit this year, and we hate being in the red. I don't like it. We've never been in the red, but this year we'll be a little bit in the red. But without relief, we'll be $5 million next year. So it's a, school funding, school finance is incredibly complicated. Merge that in with tax reduction. Y'all got big jobs.
Thank you for all you do, and I think every local taxpayer is happier knowing that their local tax dollars are actually staying locally, right? I mean, that's another reason why this is
After
so important.
HB3 passed in 2019, we did a tour of a lot of community groups about the impact of that bill. Nothing got a bigger round of applause than by saying we expect to be out of Robin Hood with this. Okay, that was a huge, huge thing. Senator Betancourt was a guest speaker at a local civic group that I happen to be president of, aside from the school board, and he was on Zoom. He was very entertaining. He got a round of applause. They loved him, and I think he even promised a big raise in the basic allotment. I can't remember. I can't remember exactly.
Rich, help is on the way. I'm just not sure how yet, but it's in. Senator Miller, I think your comments are really important. Look, this analysis is really good. It's very well done. It shows that, and this is the same when we've looked at the counties ourselves, and but you've got literally for starter homes, which is about the average home, you take what was a $4,100 tax bill, and all of a sudden it's $1,800. Now that's $2,300. That's nearly $200 a month that a starter family, your kid, doesn't have to put into taxes, and that's after tax. That's after federal taxes. Right. So I mean, that's so that's tax-free. Effective savings. It's enormous for them because this is the time of period they don't have a lot of income. Now, when you look at the average home, it's substantially more dollars saved. Up to $3,300, But the end result is, again, monthly savings, $189 for a starter home, nearly $300 for an average home. This is real money for folks to keep them in their homes. And so I really just really appreciate the analysis, Rich. And the Senate did pass $4.5 billion repeatedly of additional help. In fact, we passed it so many times that we actually got it appropriated and out of our budget, even though it did make it through the House. So we've got more help on the way. Okay.
Thank you.
All right. And we did skip over the counselor, so we could go back to questions for him. But.
Jim, I appreciate your testimony here today. I think that's a good point about how this works, and the importance of that. It's the most direct way, right? And Senator Betancourt made the point that it's 3 times or 3.5 times. That's 350% more effective for every dollar we spend, on a homestead exemption increase. It gets you 350% more down the road towards a lower tax bill, right? Because that is, the thing that we hear. Well, my tax bill didn't go down. Well, this does that, right? So this eliminates, I guess, let me put it a different way. It eliminates a portion of your school M&O tax bill, right?
Yeah, the key, Senator, is that
Jim, switch the mic.
the key is you have a targeted exemption, but then you also have a targeted state aid that's connected to the exemption, and that is incredibly unusual in states. So you've done both. You've targeted and you've got state aid formulas.
And Jim, hold up your book again. I haven't read it. You said this is
a little bit, because you'll hear about appraisal caps are good. Well, it's like any vice that may sound good, but they're really bad for you. This is a little booklet that Charlotte Blakemore put together about appraisal caps in the United States. And I think we passed it out last session. If any members would like one, I'll be happy to get you this little booklet for light reading.
Well, we need 18 copies. I would love to read 500 pages. It's what I do. Okay, so, all All right. And,
Charles,
and Jim, and one last point from this standpoint. Jim, you, in your 47 years of doing this, okay, you know, you've seen Rich's comment is that he gets the biggest round of applause for, as a school district trustee, for when they're out of Robin Hood, okay? So, you know, what do you think is, you know, since these major homestead exemptions are out, what type of feedback are you getting? I think I get constantly stopped about how measurable it is and how people see it. They see it on their tax bill, but they see it in their check that they write. We'll talk about what in another hearing, cities and counties and special districts. But I'm getting constantly stopped, and and we'll talk about this with Silver legislature. The over 65 reaction is off the charts.
Yeah, as years ago, Chairman Otto, when I told him that we had the best property tax system in the United States, he said, that may be fine for you, but my constituents don't believe it. And what you do by homestead exemptions, particularly your type, is folks actually see it. I mean, the seeing is not logical, but that's what they feel. They feel a reduction in their appraised value, and we're still trying to get them off the appraised value as being the key to tax relief, like the 3.5, 2.5. But what they see with this is, oh, my appraised value's gone down. Now it's going to be $140,000. They visualize it. It's a visual thing. And the data from this gentleman, I'm sitting here going, oh my gosh, really? Yeah.
No, it's great to see it because this is a real reduction, you know, and this is, you know, while well calculated by Rich and Kendall County, again, we know this is, you know, monthly savings of over $100 a month, really anywhere, depending upon for an average home. But the fact that when you have an average home that is higher than the state average of $339, this adds up to be real money again. And this type of stuff is felt, especially when you've got inflation baked in everywhere. The one place it's not baked into is Texas's ISD property tax bill. That's a big, big advantage for homeowners. And with the passage of this bill, Mr. Chairman, it will be additional help is on the way. So the good news, Rich, you're going to get, you know, you're going to get Calvary on your bill. You're going to get Calvary on your daughter's bill. And then I can't speak for the finance committee, but I feel there's Calvary coming there too.
Christmas could come early.
Yes, Christmas could come early.
All right, Charles, Mr. Scoma, if you could state your name. Oh, at the end, I'm sorry. You're Dixon.
I'm Dixon.
Okay, I apologize for
want
that.
me or-
Yeah,
All right.
you're first. So, Mr. Holman, if you could state your name, your position.
Thank you, Senator. I'm Dixon Holman from Arlington, Texas. I'm here representing Texas Realtors. I'm the Public Policy Oversight Chairman. I'm a broker and 40-year veteran of the real estate industry and a former 8-year city council member in Arlington, so I greatly respect what you all do and the time it takes and your service to all Texans. So we are here, Texas Realtors, to strongly support Senate Bill 4 and SJR 2. We believe that continued, well thought out increase in the homestead exemption is a positive for all the reasons that we've already heard in the previous testimony. We have, we thank you greatly for the 2023 reform and relief bill on property taxes. We think this is another positive step in, with inflation, insurance costs, et cetera, interest rates that are stubbornly higher than most consumers nowadays remember them having been. We believe this does provide that relief, and $200, $300, $400 can make a very significant can have a very significant impact on decisions when it comes to purchasing a home, deciding whether to purchase a home. Not just because someone might not be able to qualify, it may play in that decision. And so we believe that the more we can do to impact the ability for homes to exchange, that opens up homes for others. Right now, we've got a lot of people that are locked in place, won't leave. We talked earlier about it's cheaper to rent than it is to buy, which it is in many cities. And so we just believe this is an overall positive, and we're strongly in support. We've heard from taxpayers throughout the state, our membership has and our staff has, that the last exemption made a significant difference, but now there's some clawback from the evil side of all those things I named out there that are starting to pull some of that money back. And so this additional $40,000, we believe, will have a significant positive impact, and we're very much in support.
Thank you.
Questions for ladies?
Yeah, Senator Gutierrez, recognize Senator Gutierrez as president. Committee, thank you, Senator Gutierrez.
Yeah, that's right. As he was fighting his way, and you might want to, did we recognize Senator Paxton? I think we did.
Yes.
Okay, very good. I do, Dixon, I love your, if I could.
Any questions?
Dixon, I love your comment about the clawing back from the other evil things. Okay, that's probably the best way to explain that process. There are obviously inflationary pressures on home ownership in other areas, and there's a plethora of bills filed about that, and there will be more coming. But this is the one area that the legislature has been able to deliver substantial relief and a net negative, which is unheard of all the pressurization on homeowners. This independent school district tax is the one thing that they can count that's been down, in this case, by Rich's calculations, 56% in 5 years. And it's astonishing to them. True?
Absolutely. My wife's a public school teacher, so I have all the respect in the world for public schools and want them to be funded well, as we all do. But yes, I mean, I think that is absolutely true.
And Dixon, what's the second question? Somebody asked when they're trying to sell a home, how much is the home? What's the second question?
Yeah, how much are the taxes?
Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. I mean, there's just a one-to-one correlation. And and I love your incremental cost, return statement that this could free people up to moving to a house that they can't afford at this point.
Right.
Because it may just be another $100,000 or in value or pick a number, but this homestead exemption will get them there.
Correct. It will also incentivize those who are in their homes, if the tax burden is less, if they want to buy a more expensive home. And they say, well, but the tax bill, we put it all together, it won't make sense. It allows for transitioning in the marketplace. It's not a panacea, but it certainly makes a difference.
Very good.
You're running it.
All right.
That's right. So
Appreciate it, Dixon. Next, we got Charles Scoma with the silver-haired legislature. If you could state your name,
Thank you.
who you're with, and position on the bill.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. It's an honor to be here on behalf of the Texas Silver-Haired Legislature, which we are your representatives for older Texans, 60 and older. We have been representing the older population in Texas for the last 40 years on behalf of the House and the Senate. We're here today in support of both the Senate Bill 2
right.
and also the 4, and also the support for the concurrent resolution. We have in our legislative body a report that we had when our legislative session was in the House back last year. And one of the areas that we are supporting is in terms of the tax-exempt status. I've had the opportunity to serve both as president of the school board and having served as a councilman as well as a mayor. So I was on both sides of this issue. Back in 2003, when the Proposition 13 came down the road, we had an option as a local government to approve of it. When we had 81% of the population that voted for it, didn't give us much option, did it? No. So we approved it. But now, as we look at it from the older Texan standpoint, we have a number of issues that really drive this issue on property tax. We have not only the population growth, the older over 60 is a faster growing category in the state. We have approximately 20% of our population at 60 and older, and even the fastest growing percentage is 80 and older. We're living longer. We are living on fixed incomes for a longer period of time. We are dealing with issues that not only longevity, but taxes. We're dealing with healthcare increases, house maintenance, maintaining the properties that we have, and insurance. All of those factors are driving issues of sustainability for our older Texans. So we're here today not only to support it from that standpoint of income, but we looked at the percentage of income for residents in Texas in 2023. $51,400 was the average income for the average. It was the highest growth rate, but it was the median post-tax household income. And over 80, that income was only $37,000. So we're dealing with populations that have limited income. We had a percentage in the rural areas of even less than that in the percentage of income, approximately $30,000. And a third of our Texans that are 60 and older, they spend more than 30% of their income on housing and related utilities. Social Security represents about a third of the income for most of our older Texans. So we have limited income. 62% of the Texas households are owners, and about 40% are renters. We're seeing situations where household upkeep is important. Most of our residents were purchased in the 80s and the 90s, and at that time they were purchased around 100,000, 120,000 was about the average at that time. So this property reduction is going to put a lot of our seniors and our older Texans in a negative position. They're not going to have a property tax from the standpoint of schools because of the $140,000 exemption that we're going to be applying through this. Healthcare costs, not only do we have limited coverage under Medicare, the visual and the hearing concerns increase as we get older, and so we don't have that kind of coverage under Medicare, so that's out of pocket a lot of times. So we have limited sources for income. Household mobility, we found that only 5% of older Texans in 2021 moved, so they're staying in their homes longer. They're in older homes. The cost for maintaining those homes increases. So those kinds of situations are of a concern to us. So really, in conclusion, we know that the older Texas population continues to grow. We know that there is a continued compression in terms of disposable income because of these fixed costs in relation to taxes and also maintenance and homes, health care. So we, on behalf of the Texas Silver-Haired Legislature, we are taking a position that we are urging the 89th Texas Legislature to support Senate Bill 4 as well as Senate Joint Resolution 2. And we're asking that we will support the Texas voters to approve the increases in the residential homestead exemption amount of $140,000. So that's pretty much our. So, thank you.
All right, the chair recognizes Senator Gutierrez.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well, thank you for coming, first off. Do you mind, this is probably a rude question, how old are you? You're over 65, obviously.
Yes, sir. In about 6 weeks, I'll be 87.
Get out of here. You look fantastic, by the way. Wow. I wasn't expecting that, but okay. So, do you still drive?
Yes, sir.
Exactly.
Still have a driver's license.
Still have a driver's license. You're driving, everything's great. because you forgot one big cost that's killing all Texans, including our seniors, and that's auto insurance. It's amazing. In the last 6 or 7 years, our auto insurance has gone up almost 100% and beyond. What's your premium, if you don't mind me asking, your monthly premium?
It's automatic deduction, and I think it runs around $280.
Imagine that. You're paying $280 a month. And that's what most people are paying now. It wasn't but 5, 6 years ago. It was about 100. And I say this is why this bill is so important.
Yeah, I agree.
Because the cost of all of it, the bread basket, do you still go to the grocery store? My wife does Instacart. That's what I mean. She does this whole business.
I have to go, but I need guidance when I go.
No, listen, I like to squeeze my avocados. I can hardly afford them, but I like to squeeze them. But my wife, she does the Instacart, and she gets these hard avocados because some kid picking her groceries just doesn't work. So I tell her, look, I'm doing the cooking here. I want to squeeze my avocados. My point in all of this.
Let the avocados roll. Let them roll.
Yes, no tariffs.
Right. Yeah, that's right.
Watch out.
I know.
Let's start.
Got it. We don't want those.
We love tomatoes. My point here is that, to your point, all of this stuff has gotten crazy expensive. The bread basket, the cost of living, and I think this bill is great. I'm going to pitch an insurance bill here real soon that I think you're going to like. But I thank you for bringing this up because we have seniors that are, I think you said the average was $36,000 a year.
For 80s and older.
That's crazy. And you have to ask yourself, when you add all of the cost of goods sold, the whole bread basket and the auto insurance and everything else, how people are making it. And that's why this bill is important. And so thank you for, Senator Betancourt, for giving us the opportunity to join author of the darn thing, because it's really a good bill. But thank you so much. I just needed to ask you those questions because, my goodness, a family of 4 right now, the grocery bill is $400 or $500 a week. It's astounding to me. And until policymakers go to the grocery store, you don't see it. And so I urge you all to go to the grocery store. You'll probably already do. I bet you do, Paul. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Senator. And, a lot of our seniors are health deficient in terms of food and nourishment. Because of this fact, they have to make judgment decisions as to whether they pay their insurance to maintain their home or they pay cost of food. So that there are pressures there as well. So.
It's incredible. Thank you so much.
And Charles, if I could, I just want to thank you. That's really compelling testimony. Senator Gutierrez is right on this. $36,000 of income. Look, just this one bill adds, $363 back to the pocketbook. But when you take the entire homestead exemption, it's closer to, do the math in my head, about $1,260. Okay, so that's money that you would otherwise be spent, and that's not counting in rural Texas. It drops to $30,000. I mean, that is de minimis. So this is part of the. I mean, you've already paid a lifetime of taxes, but it's part of I think, the moral responsibility that we have to keep seniors in their homes, and I too, like Senator Gutierrez, would like to be able to be driving to the grocery store at age 87 to feel the avocados. Okay, but more importantly, it's real money when people have such a small amount of actual income. I mean, this is total net income, right?
Yes, sir. That's pre-tax.
Wow. Yeah, right. Pre-tax?
No, we said post-tax.
Okay.
Post-tax, yeah.
If it was pre-tax, my hair was about ready to go on fire.
No, post-tax.
Okay, but no, that pre-tax, it's bad enough. But that means that, 80% of our Texans are dealing with $36,000 or less. But that's over 65. Well, this makes my day, actually, that we're helping them. And I think it makes Senator Gutierrez's day, Senator Paxton, Senator Cook's day, everybody's day, Senator Middleton.
I think it's not only helping, but it's sustaining. sustaining a community that is very important to us, and that is the over 60. These folks have contributed to our community over the years. Several, like myself, have served in elected positions to provide services to the community. And we can only do that if we retain our health and if we are able to retain our homestead. A lot of seniors now are moving into the homeless category. And unfortunately, because of these restricted income and the cost. So remaining in their home is so important. And this bill will apply $140,000 to that exemption. And I'm going to say it's probably going to take out 80 or 90% of the 60 and older will have no property tax because of this. And you guys can be very proud of what you have done. I know when we testified back, I guess it was November, insurance. You talk about auto insurance, homeowner insurance has just gone crazy. And so we don't have any option on that as homeowners, regardless of your age. The insurance increases have just been phenomenal. So we're trying to not only get that down, but when we talked about renters, we know that 40% of our Texas residents are renters. Right now, it is an advantage, but it has not always been that way. It hasn't been that way for a few years prior to this. And one of the issues that was driving the increases in rent was the property taxes. And so this will help with that as well in the future, we think. So thank you very much.
Charles, no, thank you. It's just, and the good news is since 20 years, that 81% vote has gone to 86, 83. So things have become clearer for the over 65s. And of course, state keeping in their home is number one. And they are the largest voting block as well. That's why those numbers stay very high as well, because they consistently folks vote when they're that age or so. Thank you for your service.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Chairman, for bringing this bill. You've got to point out where I know we've all campaigned before, we've all knocked on doors, and the thing that I heard on the front porch the most is, I'm gonna have to sell my home. I can't afford to pay these property taxes anymore. Right. And it's the home that they, raised their kids in. This is their family home, and it's a terrible situation that someone would have to be in to do that. And here we are, we're doing something about it today. That's what this bill does. It allows, especially our over 65, to continue to afford to own their family home that they raised their children in. And I'm hoping we don't ever have to hear those stories again on anyone's front porch. I'm gonna have to sell this house because I cannot afford the property taxes anymore. So that's the kind of incredible work that I think this legislation does. And I know we've all heard it at the front. We've all heard that knocking on people's doors. So here we are in the Senate doing something about it today. So thank y'all for.
We're happy to be your representatives.
So thank you. All right, members, any more questions of our panel? Thank y'all for coming today. All right, we're on to panel 2. So the chair calls Susan Sparto, Sam Mosaic, sorry, apologize for that. And then I think our third, well, they would be here, so for now, this is our last two. So, Susan, we will start with you. If you'll state your name, who you're with, and your position on the bill.
My name is Susan Spataro. I live in Austin, Texas. I was the Travis County Auditor for 24 years. I'm now retired, and I'm certainly for the bill. Chairman Betancourt, I thank you for introducing this bill to give homeowners the additional exemption of $40,000. These bills serve the interest of taxpayers. I say that because I live in Austin. Since I was with the government for 24 years, I'm very interested in how governments work still, whether they're following the rule of law and how the money is being spent. So I spend probably more time than many people looking at that. And the truth of the matter is most of the discussion is how to spend money. There is very little consideration for those that have to pay for the taxes. And I can't thank you enough that the state of Texas and the Senate is concerned about people who are paying the taxes, not just those that are receiving the money. When you go to a body, the city, the county, what you see is people there wanting more money. They want to take more money from those that are paying. Those that are paying don't usually go to those meetings because they're working. And they don't have the ability to go and sit all day at city council or sit at a meeting. The other thing is the tax structure is extremely complex for the average person. It's very difficult for them to understand. In Travis County, we have a central billing, and that's convenient. However, when you have a central billing, the bill comes, and people don't really look at which entity pays what. They just look what they have to pay for taxes. And although the local governments talk about affordability all the time, in our area, they almost constantly raise the tax limit up to the voter-approved rate without a thought. And the other thing is that they have tax rate elections. And the impact that has is, and I think this is education on your all's part too, is that people, like when you talk about the exemption, they'll think that's an exemption for all entities. So I think it's important to point out that this is for school taxes. It isn't for city or county taxes or community colleges. People need to understand the tax structure, and they really don't. So I think that is extremely important, and we need to think about the people who pay taxes. It's a sad situation that people have to lose their homes because they cannot pay taxes, and that is in fact the case. The other part of people not being seniors, and I'm a senior, not being able to afford the taxes is that about 62% of the population lives paycheck to paycheck. What does that mean? That means is you don't have any extra money. When you get your bills, you get your check, you get your bills, there's nothing left. So when the taxes go up every single year, people don't have the money to pay for that. They just plain don't. So what can they do? Well, they can put things on their charge account. A lot of them are doing that now, but there's no good result for that. The other thing they have to do is cut vital expenses, food for their children. So it is so important that we focus on people's ability to thrive on the money that they make. In Austin, we're seeing taxes go up all the time. And what's happened is you have given some very generous tax relief on school. People in Austin haven't felt it. Why? Because the local governments increase their taxes and eat that up. One example, a couple of years ago, and it was right after you gave a compression, the city of Austin increased their M&O rate by 20.17% in a tax rate election. And people didn't really understand what that means when you start talking about pennies and this and that, but they understood it when they got their tax bill. Had there not been the school reduction, it would have really hit hard. So I think it's important to keep looking out for the taxpayer, for the working person that's doing everything they can. They make a community. And I thank you for working on this bill. Thank you, Senator.
Thank you, Susan. Sam?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members. My name is Sam Mazek. I'm a builder and developer, residential that is, out of Tyler. And I have the honor to serve as the Government Relations Chair for the Texas Association of Builders. For over 79 years, our association has been at the forefront for housing affordability. We come up and we advocate for anything that can make home more affordable. As you know, most Texans, that's the way they accumulate wealth, in the equity in their home. So we want to always, be the forefront in home affordability. We are testifying. I am testifying today in support of SB 4 and the accompanying resolution. We commend the Senate, the legislature for past gains for the reduction, and we look forward to this one as well. There's so many things that drive the housing affordability, and we really want to, help homeowners stay in their homes. That is paramount. There's a lot of costs that are outside of our ability to control, but this is another step in the right direction to help with housing affordability. And I appreciate the opportunity to address you today.
Thank you. Members, questions?
I do.
Our panel?
Sure.
Senator Bettencourt.
First off, Susan, I want to thank you for stating the obvious, that yes, this bill is speaking for the taxpayers, right? Because that's all too often been lost in this, complex world, that there's actually bills that are designed to speak for taxpayers who can't speak for themselves. And when you look at the cacophony of voices that occur in an urban area, that can get drowned out. But you'll be happy to know that there will be a line on the tax bill that says how much this is saving everyone. So at least when they look at the bill, they'll know that answer.
And I also think that it's important for people to know that this doesn't come at the cost of the school district, that the state is making up for that. Because there's just this rhetoric out there which is not accurate.
No, I know. And right now, the rhetoric is not accurate because of another issue. But but the state is picking up the tab on this, and that's one of the times when this doesn't, cause a direct shift to other taxpayers because the state is picking up the bill. Sam, you mentioned the cost of everything at this point in time. The calculation from Bernie or from Kendall County, their starter home they think is about $339,000. That is unfortunately not too far from where the cost of starter homes are, really, given all this inflation. And the only place where there's been deflation that builders don't necessarily pay directly for, on it, but your first customer does, which is, the school taxes. You agree, Sam?
Absolutely, sir. And there's a lot of other factors that affect the housing, and we'd be looking to work with this board and this body on other issues that affect housing. There's other a lot of regulatory things that affect housing, and so look forward to helping with y'all's help and working on that.
And Susan, I'm glad you mentioned that with the schools, because we saw that after we passed SB2. What was it? The second called special?
It was the second called special when we actually passed it.
Post-traumatic stress syndrome. But this is, like I said, a keep whole, right? I mean, this doesn't take away anything from our ISDs. This puts the state essentially surplus funds in place of what would have been that local school property tax share. So we're relieving the local taxpayers of that with state dollars. Of course, it's all taxpayer dollars. Government has no money at all. It's all taxpayer money. But we're relieving that local property tax share and making sure they don't end up with any less dollars at all at the ISD level. So I'm glad you brought that up. That's a point that we need to continue to make, because I see that floating around where the Homestead exemption increase could lower funding to schools. That's nonsense. It doesn't do that. We make sure it doesn't do that. So thank you for bringing that up.
Right, and actually the numbers are the last 2 years that we've got data on, which I think is 22 and 23. The local state now has 50.4% of the school share, and I think it went up to 50.6. I'm going from memory. So we've actually clicked back over 50% of the cost of education is on the state side now because of the tax increases. So it's a win-win-win for everybody.
All right, members, any more questions of our panel? Thank you all for coming out today. Appreciate it. All right, now we are going to move on to public testimony for Senate Bill 4 and SJR 2. And first on docket is James Quintero. Chair calls Al Zito.
Yeah.
We'll do 4 at a time. So chair calls Jennifer Rabb. Chair calls Brent South. So James Quintero, Al Zito, Jennifer Rabb, and Brent South. They're here. We got 2 minutes for everyone on deck on this section of the hearing. All right, James, we will begin with you. If you'll state your name, who you're with, and position on the bill.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, my name is James Quintero. I'm a policy director at the Texas Public Policy Foundation, and I'm here to offer my strong support of SB 4 and SJR 2. The legendary economist Milton Friedman once said that I am in favor of cutting taxes under any circumstances and for any excuse, for any reason, whenever it is possible. And it's in that spirit that I want to applaud the Texas Senate's persistent efforts to deliver substantial and meaningful tax relief to homeowners. And I actually hope that you do even more. And of course, the state is well positioned to offer an even larger measure of tax relief. As we all know, this session, lawmakers come in with a $24 billion general revenue related surplus, in addition to an ESF balance that's expected to reach $28.5 billion by the end of fiscal year 2027. Those are incredible figures that speak volumes about the strength of the Texas economy and the soundness of the policy framework that undergirds it. And I hope the committee today will consider those encouraging features and return at least $10 billion back to taxpayers this session. Now, whatever the amount that the legislature ultimately decides, I want to caution that tax relief should not be your only focus. You should also give serious consideration to tax reform. It's been very clear over the last interim that when the legislature cuts taxes, local governments use that as an opportunity to raise taxes through a combination of aggressive rate increases, large bond propositions, and increased utilization of non-voter approved debt instruments like certificates of obligation. These local actions erode the value of state-directed tax relief such that no matter if you guys decide to increase the homestead, engage in more rate compression, or do something else, those actions are in danger. I thank you for your time, and I look forward to any questions.
Thank you, James. Appreciate you coming out.
And James, just to, it's not just, thank you, Mr. Chairman, it's not just Milton Freeman, it's Arthur Laffer, who's still alive and with us. Any tax cut, and specifically is a good thing, as well as Arthur Laffer's focused on homestead exemptions, like in Tennessee and other states, because that relieves the pressure on home affordability. But you're right, we've got a lot of other work. There's many other bills coming. We're going to be talking about all these issues because as we've calculated here in the testimony from Bernie and Kendall County, and it's very similar across the state, we've got 56, pick a number, percentage reductions in school taxes in 5 years. That, however, is not the same, because those are other taxing jurisdictions have had increases. And don't get me started on, Harris County, okay, who promised an 8% increase and actually got a 15% increase because they were quoting the rollback rate, Adam, not the real number, at least the county judge was, on purpose, in my opinion, but we'll be dealing with those issues later as well. So I appreciate your full-throated support for by TPPF for Senate Bill 2.
Thank you, Chairman.
All right, Mr. Zito, if you could state your name, who you're with, and position on the bill.
First thing, what he said, yeah.
Oh.
Al Zito, good to see you all again. Former councilman in the city of Southlake and active with both city and school issues there and so on and so forth. So thank you very much. Good to see you all again. Why don't you just bring up a couple things. One being how the 140,000 and the 100,000 prior is skewed in regards to homeowner value. So the percentage of savings winds up changing based on how that value winds up increasing. And just to consider that in any thoughts in the future. As we adopted a homeowner exemption, it was always by percentage and not by dollars, because it would then be equal appreciative, equal spread across whatever value that there was. Senator Gutierrez, yeah. insurance, it's all. And it's all doubled and or tripled. And it's homeowner, it's everything. So cost of home ownership is all the different elements. And this bill I support wholeheartedly. To see how we've also mitigated, like we haven't before, or like you all have before, the non-impact on INS and so on and so forth. That's to be applauded. It's all good stuff. So everything that has been done is appreciated. The other thing I'll argue about the 501 pages against cap
Appraisal
stuff,
caps.
that
Right.
appraisal caps. There's two knobs to this. It's the tax rate and it's the appraisal. So everything that gets done here, which is commendable and is wonderful, gets mitigated by one of two things: either by increased rates or by the appraisal caps going up. So without having any type of protection on the appraisal caps, it gets clawed back, as another testimony said earlier. And happy to answer any questions.
Members?
Just a quick comment. We do have them. We have one called a circuit breaker, which affects every property except homestead exemptions, where there's a 10% appraisal cap on circuit breakers, 20 at this point in time. And what you'll really see is my focus is levy. It's your bill.
Mm-hmm.
See, when the Bernie guys did the calculation, Rich did, he's looking at the bill. When the bill is down 56%, that's the real success point, because everybody gets focused on some other issue, whether it's the appraised value or pick a number, but it's the value times rate equals the bill, the levy itself for the jurisdictions. And that's been my laser focus, because while we talk about these other issues, that's why it took, and I know James knows, it took 38 years to change the rollback rates in 2019. And that was a fight that took three regular sessions to get through, to lower how fast government can grow. And that was quite a fight back in 2019.
I remember.
Right. Okay. But it was important to get that bill, in there, because otherwise, as James may say, stop the steal, that would have been substantial. But your points are well considered. And just remember the levy, the bill.
And if I may, that's exactly what I'm concentrating on as well.
Perfect.
The bottom line. And the bottom line, when we look at 100,000 or 140, when we see a 10%, the 10% is exceeding the savings. So the bill winds up being, depending on where you are and the value of the property, it winds up.
And for
washing
school
away.
taxes, the good news is that it doesn't, because we've got a hard collection limit.
Yes, sir.
And that's a huge advantage on school taxes. The 3.5 that's on cities and counties above 30,000, Adam, is kind of a soft limit. Okay, but that hard 2.5% collection means that taxing jurisdiction can't push for more than that ISD. So that's the really good stuff that when we go through. But I love your comments. We have more time, we'll chat, because we'll be back.
Look forward to it.
All right. Okay. So
when it's done right, it's done right.
Right, you got it. And when there's a cut, there's a cut.
And in the city where I put in policies for South Lake, we're paying, for a lot of people, the same amount of taxes that we were paying 10, 15 years ago for the city, even though things have changed dramatically. So when it gets done right, it gets done right. But not all taxing entities do that.
And that, if you were on my radio show, you would have a ringing bell at this point in time.
I will be on your radio show any time of the week. And
All right.
Happy to.
Okay.
Thank you. Good to see you.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate it, Mr. Zito. Mrs. Rabb, if you could state your name, your position on the bill, and who you're with.
Yes, I'm Jennifer Rabb, president of the Texas Taxpayers and Research Association. I'm here to testify on the bill. We're testifying on the bill because we recognize that an increase in the homestead exemption solves certain problems, or at least begins to address certain problems. But we're also concerned about other policy problems or issues that it might create. And it is Tara's role to come here and talk to you about tax policy. That's been our job for 50 years. And so I'm coming to you with the perspective of what is good tax policy in the big picture. My handout looks like this. This is my testimony. We have a couple of pages on where Texas ranks, both in terms of individual tax burden and business tax burden. These charts are pre-2023. So what you see on these charts, Texas has already likely improved itself. It is relative to other states, but we expect when we get new charts from the Tax Foundation and Cost, we expect to see improved rankings. This one I'd like to talk about, which is Texas tax competitiveness. We are ranked 40th in terms of competitiveness by the Tax Foundation for property tax and 7th overall. We're largely 7th because we don't have a personal income tax. But the concerns that we have are best represented by this chart. After the $100,000 exemption, we have 43% of value, homestead value on the roll and 93% of business property. We have 307 school districts with average home value less than $100,000, which means those folks who don't pay property tax have an incentive to vote for higher tax rates and debt that they themselves will not have to pay. And so we have concern that we're in fact kind of working against ourselves if we're trying to control tax rates to bring taxes down overall. And an increase in the homestead exemption to $140,000 would potentially exacerbate that situation. Thank you.
Members, questions? Thank you.
And Jennifer, I believe that we've gotten to the 10th best tax rate now. That's my guess. Do you all agree with that?
I don't know. I can't say.
All right.
I believe if you say it's true, I believe you.
Okay, good. All right. Well, I think we've improved dramatically on that, because when we started this sleigh ride a long time ago, when David Shoemaker was working for me, we were the 3rd highest tax rate in the country. We were chasing Illinois and New Jersey into oblivion, and fortunately we've turned the ship around, and I think we dropped to 10th place. I think we just barely, the next ranking will squeeze out Wisconsin, if I remember correctly. So all the amalgamated effects were headed in the right direction as a giant pot, I believe. So, all right, thank you, Jennifer.
Thank you. Mr. West? Sorry.
South.
That'd be south.
Well,
One of those directions.
You have a choice between north, south,
Wrong direction.
east, or west. Okay,
Yeah.
so right.
You can call me whatever you want. I'll go north, east, whichever
Mr.
way.
South.
West is over there. Yeah.
Good morning. My name is Brent South. I'm here representing the Texas Association of Appraisal Districts, and we are on the bill. However, I will say anytime y'all provide property tax reduction, it does make our jobs a little bit easier. So, but that's a policy decision for the lawmakers to make. Our only concern is with the implementation of the increased homestead exemption in year 1. We had the similar situation in 2003 from SB 2. For those of you, I know Senator Betancourt, you know the process, but the way that the system works, we're required to certify the appraisal roll by July the 25th, but the election doesn't occur until November. So there was a little bit of confusion amongst our chief appraisers throughout the state on what value were we to certify, and then at what point do we provide a supplemental roll with the increased homestead exemption. And I know it does state in the bill that we are to provide that supplemental roll. We just would like a little more clarity so we know exactly which roll do we certify and at what point in time do we provide that supplemental roll with the increased amounts. We don't mind providing both. We just want to know which order, when that needs to occur, and what that process is to look like.
Senator Betancourt.
Your wish is granted. We have a floor amendment that will come out that will make it crystal clear that we want you to provide the roll that assumes that the public will be voting for this, because as Charles and others have indicated, Texans have voted for homestead exemption increases, whether local or not, and the 80% for the last 20 years. So we're going to make it crystal clear. The roll goes out with the 40% increase in the homestead exemption, and that should significantly reduce the complexity of your life and the tax assessor's life.
My work here is done. Thank you.
That's right. That's right. Your wish has been granted. May you live long and prosper. All right.
All right, members, any more questions for our witnesses? Thank you all for coming today. Appreciate it. All right, on to the next round. The chair calls Jarrett Woodward. Chair calls Fran Rhodes. Chair calls Shannon Halbrook. Jared Holbrook, Fran Rhodes, and Shannon Halbrook, sorry. And then there's one more.
There.
Chair calls Bill Peacock. So 4.
Fran Rhodes isn't going to be able to make it. She's in another.
Okay.
Very good.
Okay, Fran's out.
So we'll begin with Mr.
Woodward?
Holbrook?
Woodward.
Woodward, sorry. If you'll state your name, who you're with, position on the bill.
Sure. Jarrett Woodward. I'm here representing myself, and unfortunately, I have to be against the bill. And I have to base that off of how you guys handled the last one in 2023. So I'm one of the citizens that contested the November 2023 election. And as you guys know from having SB 6 during the 4th special session, that HJR 2 was prohibited from going into effect. And so if you look up in the Constitution right now under Article 8, Section 1-B, and scroll down to the date section where it's amended, you'll see that it still says pending. So that has never actually become part of the Constitution. So I'm really confused as to how did these homestead exemptions go out? I mean, during the hearing, Senator Nichols told everyone on the Senate floor that there was a major problem because you guys directed the appraisal districts through your bill to send out these tax bills before the election, and then the election was contested, which prevented it from being certified. Governor Abbott did issue a proclamation, but it's null and void. The courts have already ruled that. My election contest is still in the courts. And so the election can't be certified until the entire thing is finalized through the courts. So I'm just really curious as to why you guys would move forward with this stuff. I mean, you guys have kind of ruined your credibility. So,
All right, members, any questions? Witness? All right, we'll move on to next witness.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Members, my name is Shannon Halbrook. I'm with Every Texan, and I'm testifying on SB 4. So we are an equity-focused organization that believes that all Texans should be able to reach their full potential. So according to the LBB, the cost of the tax cuts since HB 3 in 2019 and then the tax cuts we had 2 years ago, total cumulative cost is about $51 billion. That's a lot of money, and we think it's time to sort of take a step back and think about, okay, should we be continuing to do more tax cuts, or should we think about some of the other priorities for the state, namely investing in our public education system, in our state workforce, in our infrastructure, in our healthcare system, et cetera. So I do want to remind y'all too that the carryover balance that we have right now of $25 billion is not permanent. And there's this question about the state sort of filling the bucket in terms of public education funding. Well, it's doing that for now, but the next downturn that we have, the state's going to be looking around saying, okay, where can we cut, because we don't have that carryover balance anymore. So it's just something to keep in mind. So that being said, we don't want to keep doing more cuts. We're not in favor of that. But we certainly realize that folks are hurting. Folks are paying high property taxes, and folks, especially over 65, are really struggling. Renters are really struggling, and other low-income Texans. So if we're going to do more cuts, we think they should be as equitable as possible. In that sense, the increase in the homestead exemption is the most equitable way to do it. The Comptroller's Exemptions and Incidents report, which just came out, confirms what we knew all along, which is that the incidence of the increase in the exemption, is really felt across the income spectrum, whereas ways like appraisal caps and other methods to cut property taxes really benefit the folks at the top the very most. Sometimes more than half of the benefit of a tax cut goes to the upper 20%. So that being said, we would also really like to see something a little bit more targeted to really get the most bang for the buck in terms of the tax cuts, like a circuit breaker or renters rebate, more help for renters directly. I appreciate the conversation earlier about renters. And thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Members, any questions of the witness? All right. Chair recognizes Bill Peacock.
Mr. Chairman, members, my name is Bill Peacock. I'm here representing myself, and I really appreciate all the effort that y'all have put into property tax relief here in Texas over the last 6 years, but it hasn't worked as well as it should have, so that's why I'm opposed to Senate Bill 4 today. So what you put in, basically $18 billion on property tax relief in 2023. What happened? Property taxes went up $6 billion since then. Since 2019, the cost of those previous tax relief efforts is about $45 billion, if I've done the math right, since that time. And what's happened to property taxes since 2019? They've gone up $23 billion. So it's not working. And I suggest the reason it's not working is there are two things. One, compression rather than homestead exemption is the best way to go. And two, none of it will work unless you really put a limit on local government spending and the local government tax increases that go along with it. You know, there's supposed to be 3.5% limits on property tax growth, more or less, on the cities and counties, but they've been going up 8, 9, 10% a year for quite some time now because of all the loopholes in that, and it's just not working. I've heard around the Capitol that some members are getting a little weary of continuing to spend money on property tax relief and not getting much results, and so they might want to move on to other things like spending on infrastructure or schools or things like that. But I suggest really the people who are getting the most weary are taxpayers who continue to pay higher property taxes and don't get any relief or get very little relief despite the efforts that y'all are making up here. So I'm against the bill, not because it's a bad bill, but because I think there's a better way to go. Thank you.
All right, members, any questions of our witnesses here? All right, thank you all for coming out today. Appreciate it.
Sure, thank you.
Okay, I don't think we're really seeing any other. Yeah, looking at the iPad here. Is there anyone else wishing to testify for, on, or against Senate Bill 4 or SJR 2 here today? Anyone else wishing to testify for, on, or against? Hearing none, public testimony is now closed. And we will move on to the next part. Senator Betancourt moves that Senate Bill 4 will be reported to the full Senate with the recommendation that it do pass and be printed. The clerk will call the roll.
Chairman Betancourt.
Aye.
Vice Chair Middleton.
Aye.
Senator Molly Cook.
Aye.
Senator Gutierrez. Senator Nichols. Senator Paxton. Senator West.
All right, there being 6 ayes and 0 nays, Senate Bill 4 does pass and will be reported to the full Senate. I believe Senator Nichols is going to have a motion in writing here. Okay, so the chair recognizes Senator Nichols has given us, the committee, his motion in writing that he supports this bill and that his vote be entered into the record. Senator Betancourt moves that Senate Joint Resolution 2 be reported to the full Senate with a recommendation that it do pass and be printed. The clerk will call the roll.
Chairman Betancourt.
Aye.
Vice Chair Middleton.
Aye.
Senator Cook. Aye. Senator Gutierrez. Aye. Senator Nichols. Senator Paxton. Aye. Senator West.
Aye. There being 6 ayes and 0 nays, SJR 2 does pass and will be reported to the full Senate. And Senator Nichols has left a motion in writing that it would like to be shown. There we go. As voting aye to both Senate Bill 4 and SJR 2, which of course doesn't change the outcome. We're all in favor of this. Is there any objection to that motion in writing? Seeing no objection, that motion in writing is hereby ordered. And now it is time for Senator Betancourt to take over the chairmanship again. I gave the gavel back, so.
Well, that's right. You know, I'm really happy. That's right. After you told me that story, it didn't happen once. Okay. I want to thank everyone, the members of the committee, for their support.